Welcome back to Different Strings, a guitar podcast. We are about to embark on Music That Matters, which is an offshoot of the Different Strings podcast. My name is Wes. I'm your host, and I'm here with Andrew, who is your other host. And actually, he's the host because this whole thing was his idea. But we're not going to debate that right now. We are co-hosts and loving it. And you are tuned in for another session of Music That Matters, where we get into albums that made us feel funky for whatever reason and had an effect on us as musicians, as humans, and that we think you should be listening to, whether you've heard of them or not. And Andrew's going to tell us where you can find us on the internet. Again, this is a different episode, remember?
You can find Different Strings, colon,
don't forget the colon,
a guitar adjacent podcast at differentstringspodcast.com, where you will find blog posts, links to past episodes, and a bunch of bitching and whining about how things were better in the old days.
Yeah, because that's us. That's our model.
Exactly. And maybe some other goodies as we continue to build our colon empire.
And in this episode, we're going to be talking about another album of Music That Matters. Andrew got to choose this album, and I will admit to being quite surprised at his choice. Andrew, please enlighten us as to your choice for Music That Matters.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you from 1986, going way back. The album is called Fore! By Huey Lewis and the News.
Really?
Bingo.
See, I would not have picked you for a Huey Lewis and the News fan.
How dare you, sir?
Well, I mean, it's just not the first band. Like, first of all, every song doesn't have a guitar solo. Second of all, they're not playing super strats.
Okay.
Third of all, it's really kind of like rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the metal. It's rock and roll.
Yes. Who was your first concert?
My first concert was Foreigner. They were touring on the Fore album, and Jill Walsh opened up for them.
Okay. Mine was Iron Maiden, 1983. Nope.
And I'll never live that down.
All right. Well, I will make you feel better. My actual first concert, the first concert I actually ever attended ever in my entire life was Barry Manilow.
Nice.
I actually, here's why I'm getting off topic. Because I also didn't think that you were much of a Huey Lewis fan. And when I picked this album, what did you send me?
I sent you a picture of my two Huey Lewis and the News LPs. Original pressings, mind you.
Original frickin' pressings. So both Wes and I, yeah, he's showing them off. That is so cool.
That's
both Wes and I, massive metalheads, and yet we both have Huey Lewis records in our collection. Wes to the vinyl. So yeah, I'm glad we can bond a little bit over this, because I don't know about you, my friend, but this album brought me much joy in what was otherwise a dismal teenage existence.
Yeah, run it down for me, man. Give me the scoop.
All right, so I had to do a little research because I really don't know much about Huey Lewis as a person. He seems like a nice enough guy, but
yeah, he's a harmonica player with Meniere's disease. Unfortunately, he can no longer tour.
Yeah. So Huey Lewis as a band formed in San Francisco, that scene in the late 70s, 1979. They were originally called Huey Lewis and the American Express.
Oh, they're going to get sued for that.
It might have been a little cease and desist action, if you know what I'm saying. But by 1980, they released their self-titled debut album, which is just called creatively Huey Lewis in the News.
There's something to say for the eponymous debut album.
Bingo, eponymous. 1982, they released the album Picture This, which featured one of my favorite all-time songs, Do You Believe in Love? Killer guitar solo, but I will skip that for now. Also featured Working for a Living, which was more like the Huey Lewis style.
Taking what they're giving because I'm working for a living.
Yep.
Great song.
Literally the year later, Sports comes out. Not sport like football and baseball, like literally the album Sports, 1983 Sports. Massive success. Now, Do You Believe in Love and Working for a Living were big hits. This album, blam, like really sets them on a course for major success.
Could you hear me? I was doing the heartbeat.
Were you really?
Yeah, I was.
That's dope. That featured Heart of Rock and Roll and I Want a New Drug. Huge.
Oh man, great songs.
Yep. But I am not going with Sports. I'm going with the 1986 release Fore. I'm not saying I didn't like Sports. That was a good album, but there is something about this album that really, like, I don't know, everything about this album just speaks to me. First of all, if you're a Huey Lewis fan, it's just nothing but banger from start to finish.
Yeah,
every song. Which
dude, that riff in Hip to Be Square.
Woo. Yeah. And the even down to the last song, which is a cappella ballad. Every song on this album just speaks to me. So there's a lot to love in their 80s catalog. Like if you want to listen to like straightforward classic Americana,
Fore on the Floor rock and roll, man.
Doo-wop. There's some doo-wop elements in there.
Huge doo-wop influence.
Yep.
Huge doo-wop influence.
Yep. Very soulful, like, R&B type style. Lots of doo-wop, lots of just Americana, lots of like Four on the Floor, like you call it. It's, it's fun. Like, you don't listen to Huey. You don't listen to Huey Lewis songs and feel like, oh, I'm sad now.
Yeah.
No, it's just happy song after happy song.
Great driving music.
Yeah. That's funny you mentioned that, because I did a lot of driving and listening to this song, screaming it to the rooftop. It was just fun. This was the little bit of, I used to get in my car or my friend's car, blast this, drive, just not going anywhere, just drive on the highway or back roads and just enjoy the music. It was just a nice respite from like the hell of home. It was just really nice. And what I didn't realize at the time was that while this album was speaking to me, it was speaking to my wife, who was living a very different life in a different place, and we hadn't gotten together yet. But we both at the same time fell in love with this record.
Nice.
And went to the same concert. So in
but not together.
Not together. In 1987, he toured.
Yeah.
To support Fore. Huey.
Well, I mean, that was the thing about Huey Lewis and the News, though. They were kind of constantly on tour. They toured so much.
That's a good point. With the Tower of Power, which it took their songs to another level.
Yeah, well, because they had a horn player. They had
Johnny Cola,
Johnny Cola, who's a sax player, a good sax player.
Yep.
Was in the band from the beginning. But when they got to Fore, they added the Tower of Power horns. And it just, like, I have always thought every band can be made better with a horn section.
Yes.
And Huey Lewis, and I got that idea because of this album. Because because Sports was a great album. Mm-hmm. And Fore is a greater album because now they have a whole horn section.
Yeah, it was just nuts, man. They did such a great job incorporating a horn section in that band. It was already a great band, and it just took them to another level. Yeah. But we saw them in 1987 in Philly at the Spectrum during a massive thunderstorm. Now, here's the part that I love. They can't, no opening act.
Yeah, because they play for 3.5 hours.
Yeah, so keep that in mind. The lights come up, Huey comes out, the place goes nuts, and he just casually says in the microphone with a rasp that he addresses the crowd, I'm suffering from a cold and sore throat.
Oh man.
And I'm really sorry for any potential like performance issues. Like he just wanted to say up front, I'm sorry, but I wanted to put on a show for you.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to let this stop me. And the place erupts massively. Standing O, he gets
They got
like,
all the
yeah.
feels for Huey.
And then this man proceeds to put on a 3.5 hour show without
Crushed it.
skipping a beat, and he crushed it. He was all over the stage. Like you would never have known he was sick unless he said something, and he did. He apologized ahead of time. He's like, "I'm sorry if I don't hit the notes." He hit the
Yeah.
notes.
You hit the notes.
Yep. And then the other thing we were during this show, my wife had to remind me of this, is during the song "Happy to Be Stuck with You" or "Stuck with You." Yep. The lights flickered off from the storm during the song, almost like on cue.
Wow.
And the crowd, it almost like they meant to do it. And the place went nuts. The place went nuts like it was on purpose.
That's awesome.
Crazy, crazy show. But I'll never forget him coming out and saying, "I'm sick, but you deserve a show, Philly," and him just like slaying. It was incredible.
Well, let's talk about the guitar players, because we're guitar players, and they had 2 guitar players, which, you know,
solid.
Huey Lewis and the News is not a band that you think of when you think of hot guitar players.
And yet. Yeah. And yet. So I'm going to bury the lead a little and talk about Johnny Cola.
Okay.
Because I'm not going to talk about their lead player. I'm going to talk about Johnny, who, in addition to playing wicked sax, was their rhythm guitar player.
Utility musician, could play a lot of things.
Yeah. Sang backup incredibly.
Yeah. I think he played keys sometimes too.
And he played a lovely white Strat. Go figure that I'm a Strat fan.
Yeah.
And if you listen to his rhythm work, you're like, nothing super shocking, but solid. And like he nails that I'm playing a Strat through a deluxe reverb tone that you absolutely need in like every band.
Yeah.
And he's doing it. And it's just perfect for that music. It is so perfect. It's understated. It fits in. He never steals the stage from the rest of the band. And but if you don't have him, you miss him.
Yeah, exactly. And having a solid rhythm guitar player that knows exactly what to play for at each and every song, that's a really critical skill. And not every band has that. And
while also being one of the best sax players and also occasionally on keys, like what a great utility man. And he sang backups. Like he was Huey's right hand for years.
And I think he wrote a couple of the hits too, or co-wrote at least.
So that's Johnny. But if we're talking lead guitar, that was done by Chris Hayes, well, at least through
this era, certainly.
Right.
I think he was with the band till like the late 90s or maybe the early 2000s before he retired.
And it's criminal that other than Huey and Johnny Cola, that none of the other musicians in that band have a wiki page.
Yeah, that
shows
ridiculous.
They are criminally underappreciated. Chris Hayes, here's the thing, his lead work was always so tasteful.
Yeah.
And melodic, deceptively easy but hard to play. Like it sounded like, oh, I'll just pick that up and play it. Nope. Like his tone was typical 80s. Like it had that 80s, like definitely a lot of reverb and delay and some chorus, but yet it was perfect. You know who he reminds me of is Daryl Sturmer from Genesis, when he toured with Genesis. And
you know what I was going to say? I was actually going to say, when I hear Chris Hayes solos, they actually make me think of Nuno Bettencourt. Not because not because of the style. They obviously don't play the same style. But Chris's solos were compositions within the song.
Right.
And so are Nuno's.
Yeah, absolutely.
The majority of them. I mean, sometimes he's just jerking off on the guitar, let's be honest. But like you can listen to a Chris Hayes solo and it's singable. And it's, once again, he's so underrated and so overlooked. Every single solo he played is 100% perfect for the song.
Also reminds me of G.E. Smith from Hall & Oates.
Yeah.
There's another guy who solos were little compositions.
Yeah, and he was really good for a telly player. Is G.E. Smith is still alive.
Yeah. So yeah, Chris Hayes, solid lead player. Now, if you listen to the album Fore, you're going to hear a typical 80s mix.
Yeah.
Okay. But it is unapologetically an 80s mix.
And yeah, gated snare, the whole 9 yards.
It is so delightful to put that album on and just be reminded of like just simple yet melodic, fun, happy, upbeat, just great rock. Just not, it's easy to absorb and listen to. You don't have to like get high and lay in bed with the headphones on. Like you can do anything with this music on, and it just takes you to a different place. It certainly takes me back to a happier time.
It's party music, man. I put both these albums on yesterday, and it was like being 16 again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because that's and dude, I'll admit it, I was not an open Huey Lewis and the News fan in the 80s.
Yeah.
I was definitely hiding that from my friends who were into Iron Maiden and Rat and Twisted Sister. And, you know, like the only band I could get away with being an open fan of with my friend group was Queen. And that's because everybody thought Brian May was an amazing guitar player, which of course he is,
mm-hmm.
Right? So, but Huey Lewis and the News is straight, solid rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know it at the time because I didn't have enough breadth of experience, but super, super heavy R&B influence and a good bit of funk influence in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and especially with Fore, there were really two rock bands on the radio that had horn sections, Chicago and Huey Lewis and the News. And Chicago, they had a couple of rock songs, but they were mostly known for their ballads.
Mm-hmm.
Huey Lewis and the News threw down 3 top 10 singles with Sports and then 5 with Fore. Sports has sold 7 million copies. Fore has sold 3 million.
Mm-hmm.
And they had 2 number 1 songs, both off of Fore. Stuck With You, do-do-do, super doo-woppy R&B song, and Jacob's Ladder, which I believe you pointed out to me was written by Bruce Hornsby and was actually supposed to be on a Bruce Hornsby album, but after they recorded it, he didn't like their version of it, the way his band played it. And I think I read that Huey was producing that album.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like, Huey, you take this song. And then of course they took it all the way to number 1.
Right. So, so check this out. Let's not forget their videos were so good.
Oh, dude, the one, I forget which song it was, but on the beach with all the pretty girls in bikinis.
Mm-hmm. Hip to Be Square.
Also a great video.
And they really got huge because their song was featured in The Power of Love was featured in Back to the Future.
Yeah. But also a great song.
Oh, right. And it's the song that Michael plays instrumentally, of course.
Yeah.
When he's auditioning to be in Battle of the Bands.
Yeah. And Huey Lewis has a cameo in the, he's the guy, I'm sorry, boys, it's just too darn loud.
Too darn loud.
And he's got the glasses and the tweed jacket on. He looks like a dweeb.
It was so cool, man. So I want to take a minute to appreciate one other person in the band who has passed away. It's been a while. But the bass player, Mario Cipollina, he was super tall, always wore sunglasses, just like always wore like a suit. He was like, he had this great stage persona, solid bass player. If you ever want to learn like some of Huey Lewis bass lines, just because they're fun to play and it gives you a really good idea of like why they're so cool, how their rhythm works. But he was dope. And none of these guys have a wiki page. which again I say is criminally negligent, that no one appreciates this band. But it also featured Sean Hopper on keyboards, Bill Gibson on drums. So we haven't talked about those guys, but those guys were part of the major lineup. And then of course they had the Tower of Power during the Fore tour. Anyway, I loved everything about this album, loved the tour, loved the videos. It was just, you could not do wrong if you were Huey Lewis in 1986 and 87. And, you know, now he's done. Like, I think there's no more music for Huey. He's got, you know, the Meniere's disease, you said, he can't hear, he can't really perform anymore. It just sucks.
What I remember about Mario is that he was always smoking.
Yeah.
You know, which once again, kids, don't smoke, don't start.
Please don't smoke.
Not good for you. And unfortunately, after he left the band in 94, 95, and he got arrested a couple of times, drug possession.
Chris.
He got arrested for robbery. Mario. Yeah. Chris retired and like takes his kids to school, you know. But yeah, I don't.
Mario had some trouble. I didn't know that.
Mario has some trouble. He struggled, you know, which is unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, rock solid bass player. And I mean, you take a rock solid rhythm section, throw horns on top of it, and then wrap it all up in great songs. You know, it's a recipe for greatness. I did a little digging into Chris Hayes because I was curious, as you do. I was curious about his signal path, because I thought I remembered him playing a Les Paul double cut, which is that
too from the ads.
Yeah, but as it turns out, he was either playing a Gibson Spirit, which is a flat top Les Paul double cut with a single humbucker.
So basically not a Les Paul.
Not a Les Paul, but it's part of the Les Paul line, right? And what I thought was a Les Paul double cut was actually a Hamer Sunburst.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So, but he, looking back through some of his videos, I saw him playing what I later found out was a 1957 Les Paul, and he also has a Les Paul Custom Black Beauty.
Ooh.
So I couldn't find any information on what he used for amps, but given his tone and that this was a California band, he probably played Mesas.
Safe bet.
Yeah. And you know, maybe Marshalls. Just, you know, there was some discussion on the internet that said he used a short run line of amps that Seymour Duncan made. They're called convertibles.
I had two.
Plug in the modules.
Yeah, they were cool.
But I don't know anything about those amps. Yeah,
we'll have to talk about that. I can't believe we've never talked about them.
Yeah, I remember the era of the modular amps where you could plug in different modules to get different sounds and switch between them. But I used a signal processor, so I didn't need to do that.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that convertible. They were, first of all, they weighed 1,000,000 pounds, even without the modules, and they were disgustingly heavy.
Yeah. So on the cover, if you're looking on YouTube, that's Huey in the middle.
Yep.
That's
flanked.
That's Chris.
Yep. And then there's Johnny
on the back. Isn't that Johnny?
No,
that's
Johnny
the keyboard player.
Yeah, Johnny's on the front next to Huey.
And that's Mario. And then that means that must be the drummer.
No, your drummer's on the left.
That guy?
Nope.
That guy.
Yep.
He's the drummer?
Yep.
All right. Yeah, and this is such a great album, man.
It really is. So Huey Lewis and the News, Fore, but as Wes said, to be fair, Sports and Fore, one of the greatest 1-2 punches in American rock history.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Listen to them both while you're at it.
Yeah, you can probably get these on Amazon for $10 as MP3s each. It'd be the best $20 you spend on music all month.
Yeah, or you can just steal it off the internet like everyone else does. But we don't encourage you to do that. But
no, we don't.
Army Hardies. Okay.
So Do you have anything else you want to add about Huey Lewis in the News 4?
No, I think we've talked about 4 as much as we need to. I'm okay with that.
Awesome. Well, then let's wrap this up. I'm up for the next choice. I haven't decided, but I'll send it to you soon. So in case you don't have it, you have a chance to find it and listen to it.
Okay.
I've got a lot of work to do to top my last pick, which was Pink Floyd's Animals.
Yeah, that was a dope pick.
So, but come back and spend a little more time with us.